Hey, music lover, welcome back again to Matt and Cheryl's Gen Excellent playlist. I'm Matt.
I'm Sheryl.
And happy 2023. We're still in the year 1977 in our playlist construction project to get you up to speed. We're building a Gen X playlist, the soundtrack of our lives, still in the year 1977. Your playlist choice for this week is a song that was riding higher in the charts at that time that I certainly remember hearing on the radio and in the household because my parents had a copy of the album. My two choices this week, we're going to go to Detroit for both of those. So the playlist, I want to remind people about our project and and the thought that goes into it, the song selections. So we're essentially soundtracking our lives in music and hopefully the lives of a lot of our peers as well. Going back, starting with the earliest years of childhood, the earliest music that we can remember hearing or had an impact on us. And then as we go through the years, and we started in 72, we're in 1977 now, we're choosing more and more music with each passing year because in our youth, growing older, we're becoming more aware and there's more music coming into our lives and more songs that are meaningful at this point. So when we're choosing songs, now when we first started out, the songs chose themselves. 72, 73, we only took big hits. And then starting with 74, Sheryl and I put our personal touch and chose songs that we liked for that year. And as we go along through the years, we keep that same format where we'll take two of the biggest hits of that year are automatically going to be there, whether we like them or not. And then Sheryl and I will also choose a couple of big hits from that year that we like the best. And then we'll round out the rest of the songs for that year just with our personal favorite. So when it comes down to making choices, when there's like several songs and we can only have so many for a particular year, I'm erring to the side of choosing songs that meant something to me contemporarily. So that's been part of the process of how we've chosen these songs. And also, since the idea is to build a playlist that's for a group setting for a bunch of people to hear, we're trying to pick songs that will appeal to a wide range of people. And so, having a mix of styles.
And kind of work well together. The songs kind of seem like although that kind of just seems to be happening on its own. I'm not putting thought in it, like, is this going to fit well? Well, maybe a little bit, but I think for the most part, it all kind of just seems to flow pretty well. And I feel like I'm choosing songs that tended to be popular too, or at least were a radio hit.
Right. And if you look at our playlist as it's currently comprised, and Sheryl has constructed a playlist for you to access on Spotify if you go there, if you use Spotify. I'm working on mine on Apple Music. Haven't published it yet. I'm still kind of tinkering with the playlist because a lot of these songs came out in different versions. So there'd be like a single version, an album version, maybe an extended version, like a 12-inch version now that we're getting into the disco era. And that,
like I Feel Love.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There could be like a 15-minute version.
So I'm still kind of finding out which songs work best in which version. And so far, I've got a mix of short and long versions on my list. So for instance, the first song that we've got that kind of choice would be Rock Your Baby from 1974. The long version of that does nothing for the song, in my opinion, because it's such a Spartan arrangement to begin with. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on.
It's all very
that
similar,
track.
The whole song anyway, just kind
of. Which is part of the great appeal of that song.
Right.
So the single version, definitely the way to go there for me. I've got the album version of The Joker on my list instead of the single version. The one that flummoxed me for a bit, maybe my favorite song from that era as a kid, which is the instrumental TSOP by the group MFSB, commonly known as the Soul Train theme. There's several different versions of that. The longer version I didn't care for so much. And it took me a while to track down the version that I know and remember as a kid. And that's essentially, it's the single version, but there's a couple of different versions of that, depending on which album you grab it from, whether it's off the actual studio album that MFSB put out that year, or off a Greatest Hits, or off a compilation. The 3 Degrees, which is a female vocal group that sang on that song, they also put it on an album, and their version has more of their singing on it. So the version I like best of TSOP is the shorter version where the girls, the 3 Degrees, don't come in until the very end of the song. Let's get it on. That's at the very end, like the coda of the song. That to me is the winning version of that track. So again, a shorter version. That's the way I like it. Now, right now, I've got the single version of that on my list. I haven't listened to the album version. I read something where the album version is a little more, God, what would be the right word to use? Lascivious, a little more sexual. I guess. I haven't listened to it yet.
Lyrically or what?
I
Moaning? I don't know. What are they doing?
I don't know. I don't know. But again, one of my all-time favorite songs since the day it came out. I haven't checked that one out yet. I Can Help. I love the long version of that because it's got these fun false endings on it where you think the song's over and you hear the people in the studio go, woo, and then the organ note is held for a while, and then boom, that Reggie Young guitar solo comes back in, and they're chucking, and there's like two false end. It's just fun. I like it. So I went the long version of that. Blinded by the Light, I definitely like the long version of that because you get more of the lyric of the song on that one.
Does it have a longer guitar solo too?
Yeah, it's got a longer instrumental section.
The guitar solo is really cool in that.
In
the long version for sure.
Yeah. No, you want Blinded by the Light to go on forever.
Yeah.
So I've got the long version of that one. Fooled Around and Fell in Love, album version there. Hotel California has only come out in one version, which give the Eagles
is the
credit.
way it should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I Feel Love, again, I got about a 6-minute version on mine.
That's probably enough.
That works pretty well.
Yeah.
Now, here's the challenging one as we get into our first song choice of our episode today. And my pick is Marvin Gaye's first crack at disco, which was called Got to Give It Up. This song, in its single release, was part 1 and part 2. So part 1 on one side of the 45 record, part 2 on the other. On the album, the album it came out on was a live album, actually, live at the London Palladium, 1977. And the reason this song got stuck on a live album is they recorded this show in London with the intent of putting out an album. They didn't have enough. Marvin was insistent. Marvin Gaye, we'll talk more about him as a person. Pretty fascinating character. He was insistent. He wanted this to be a double LP. Well, they simply didn't have enough material from the live concert recording. So the final side of the Live at London Palladium album is one song, and that's the long version of Got to Give It Up. Marvin Gaye didn't want to record a disco song. He didn't think too much of disco. So let's talk about Marvin Gaye a little bit first. One of the great artists of Motown. Difficult personality. He had a rough childhood. Not a Detroit native, like a lot of the Motown artists. He's from Washington, D.C. So his father, Marvin Sr., was a Pentecostal minister. And I think safe to say, troubled man. He was abusive, very abusive to Marvin throughout his childhood, very strict household. He preached a very conservative form of the gospel and ran his house like a dictator. Pretty brutal guy. And he also was a cross-dresser. So odd guy. Not a happy home life for Marvin Gaye, but he was obviously a very talented kid. Started singing in his father's church at a young age. Musically gifted. He could play multiple instruments. In fact, before he became a singer, he was a session drummer at Motown Records. So he came to their attention as a member of the Moonglows. Harvey Fuqua and the Moonglows was the group. Harvey Fuqua had this group. He ended up firing all of his group members and hiring a band called the Marquis, which was a band that Marvin was in from Washington, D.C. And the Moonglows had some hits, and Harvey ended up running his own record label that was affiliated with Motown Records and eventually got bought out by Berry Gordy and went to work for him as an executive. Marvin Gaye initially came on board as a studio musician, but they eventually spotted his talent as a vocalist and performer, and soon he was cutting records and had a whole string of great R&B, just driving, funky pop hits in the 60s. Early on, though, he made his intentions clear. He didn't want to be an R&B star. He wanted to be a traditional vocalist in the style of like Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett. And he actually recorded an album of standards early on. And I've seen clips, I've heard clips. Marvin Gaye's a wonderful, wonderful singer, very talented performer, but the material and style just doesn't suit him and doesn't feel right, doesn't feel comfortable, although that's how he perceived himself. But here's a guy who was just a tormented personality all throughout his life. So he had this religious upbringing, but this father who had some odd ways and brutal ways, and he was constantly throughout his life kind of torn. I mean, almost like I guess Prince would be a modern day example where you got carnality on one end and spirituality on the other, kind of getting torn in both directions. And despite his talent and charisma, and I mean, he's obviously a great looking man, lots of self doubt, very shy, lacks self confidence, but at the same time was very demanding, stubborn, wanted things his way, not someone who could easily conform to leadership or group thought. He had left home early and joined the Air Force and got kicked out basically for insubordination. And throughout his tenure at Motown, constantly battling with the executives there, wanted a lot of control over his career and his material. And he was really one of the first Motown artists to kind of break out of that assembly line system where, everybody kind of had their place. And, the artist, you basically followed the instructions of the producer and the song. You took songs from the songwriter. You took recording instructions from the producer. The musicians got on with what you did. You just sing your bit and get out and stay quiet. Well, Marvin wanted complete control over his art, and he was really the first artist to break out of that assembly line system with the What's Going On album in 1971. And Berry Gordy fought tooth and nail against his new direction. He thought it was career sabotage, this topical songwriting, this kind of depressing material about the Vietnam War and poverty in the ghetto and the troubles for returning veterans from the war and drug addiction. And Barry really put his foot down. He didn't want any of this. He said, What's Going On was the worst song I've ever heard. Well, Marvin eventually got his way, and it was a smash hit, both popular-wise and critically, and still to this day considered one of the great albums of all time. 3 hit singles off it, What's Going On, Mercy, Mercy Me, and Inner City Blues. So now he's got some power. And things were already a little tricky for Marvin at Motown because he married the boss's sister, Anna Gordy, who was way older than him. There is some speculation that it was a marriage of convenience, trying to get a foothold in the company and get his way. A tumultuous marriage, and it would eventually result in an album that he put out the next year in 1978 called Here My Dear, which we may talk about when we get to 1978. It's quite an album. I've only just started listening to that, but it's definitely worth listening to. Even though Marvin basically recorded that as a part of a divorce settlement where Anna would get all the proceeds, and the whole album is him just basically airing out all his dirty laundry about their marriage. It's
because he owed back child support, and
right,
and so that's how he was able to make some money to give to her.
Right,
yeah.
So anyway, going back after What's Going On, he puts out the Let's Get It On album, which was very sexual, and the song is very upfront. It's about getting down.
Getting it on.
Getting it on. That was a big hit. That was his second number. His first number one was I Heard It Through the Grapevine, which is one of the biggest selling singles in the history of Motown. Let's Get It On was his second number one. The album was a big hit. Prior to that, he put out a soundtrack to the movie Trouble Man in 1972. The album I Want You comes out in 1976. His collaboration with Leon Ware, songwriter, arranger. No big hits come out of that album. Then in 77, they've been pushing him to do a disco track, and Marvin wasn't really hot for the idea, but he kind of came up with his own spin on it. And in his mind, he was making a parody of a disco song. So he liked the song Disco Lady by Johnny Taylor, a Southern soul singer, which isn't really a disco song so much. And you can argue that Got to Give It Up isn't really a disco song either. It's a funk track. It's a funk track, but it has some disco hallmarks to it. Certainly the theme of the lyric is about the disco scene. And basically the lyric is about, it's a simple lyric. It's basically about a shy guy. He's in like a disco or a dance club environment, and he's lacks self-confidence, and he's too shy to get out there and really start shaking his ass. And then he just kind of comes to the realization, you know what? I'm not going to get any action unless I put myself out there and just let it all out. And he finally comes to that realization, gets out there, surrenders himself to the music.
Let the music take him.
Yeah. And next thing you know, he's got ladies coming up to him and everything's good. That's basically what the song is about. It's silly. And that's kind of what he was thinking. It's like a parody of a disco song. but the music is just so funky. I mean, it is such a great rhythmic driving track. And like I said, I went with the long version on the playlist. They really get into a hell of a groove, and it starts to really start sounding like the music that would come out a few years later out of the P-Funk universe, like their last couple of records, that more electronic kind of funk sound. But the rhythm is just infectious, and the song has gone on to have a long life because it clearly influenced Michael Jackson quite a bit. There's a chant in there about let's sing, let's shout. If you've heard the Jacksons track, Shake Your Body Down to the Ground, let's sing, let's shout, shake your body down to the ground. That's a nod to Marvin there. That's a nod to that song. And then with Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, which is one of the grooviest tracks ever laid down for Michael Jackson's Off the Wall album, clearly owes a big debt to Got to Give It Up as well, certainly with the percussion element. And you got to give a guy named Jack Ashford a lot of credit. Now, Marvin, obviously, he's keyed into the rhythm because he's got a drumming background. So he's a part of that rhythm track. And then Jack Ashford was a guy at Motown who was a percussionist. So he'd lay on a lot of these percussion details.
Was he the one playing the cowbell?
They're actually, what you think is a cow. Now, I'm glad you brought that up. What you think is a cowbell on Got to Give It Up is actually, now I've heard it described as a Coke bottle, a milk bottle. I think what it is, it's a half-filled bottle of grapefruit juice. And Marvin is actually the one playing the grapefruit juice bottle on that track. But it's a party track. It's got that great ambience where you got other people in the studio. There's chatter, there's talking. At one point while they're recording, Don Cornelius, the host of Soul Train, walks in the room, and you can hear Marvin in the background go, "Say, Don." That's Don Cornelius coming in the room.
He's like, I didn't know you were here.
Yeah. Marvin's brother is on it. His brother, who was a Vietnam War vet, who inspired the What's Going On album. His sister is in there. So he's just got family and friends. And I said, so it's a simple lyric. It's a goofy lyric. Shy guy. Oh yeah, now he's a disco star, and the ladies are all hanging on him. Marvin Gaye. One of the funny things about Marvin, I mean, he's created all this amazing dance music throughout his career. Those early Motown hits, I mean, just incredibly great driving rhythm, great dance floor songs. Marvin couldn't dance a lick. He was so awkward. And this is a guy he's this sex symbol. He's this athletic, tall, beautiful looking guy, smooth. And I'm watching these Marvin docs, and like Mary Wilson of the Supremes is on a lot of the Motown documentaries, the Hitsville story of Motown. If you haven't seen that yet, God, it's so good. Watch it now. But all the ladies were just like, they all love Marvin. But they're just like, this dude, he can't dance at all. He's so awkward. But even his own way, he makes it work for him,
Maybe this song is more autobiographical than,
Yes, it is. But that's the point, is that a lot of his turmoil in his personal life informed his art. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that seeped in. And certainly on this lyric, you can make that case that he's that shy wallflower, not the life of the party. And
that's not his outward persona, but that's how he's feeling.
And, there's a lot of live clips of him out there. And he's a great live singer, but he was never a comfortable performer. He had a lot of anxiety about performing and just this self-doubt throughout his lifetime. And he had a really troubled man. He got seriously mired in drug addiction, cocaine addiction at this time. And this was really his last big hit. Pretty much disappeared after Got to Give It Up was a big hit in 77.
What about Sexual Healing?
Well, that's what I was saying. That was his comeback. That was 5 years later.
Okay.
That didn't come till 5 years later.
Yeah.
The Hear My Dear album, which is brilliant, it really is, comes out the next year, but it's a flop. There's no hits on that album. And that was almost his intention, because the bigger hit that album was, the more money his ex-wife is going to get out. All the money's going to her. So it was kind of his act of sabotage that he just puts out this album of him just railing about their marriage and divorce. But the thing about Marvin Gaye, the guy is such a talented artist, and just so musical, that even when he's just kind of throwing crap away, it's brilliant. And Here My Dear is it's a brilliant heavy record. But yeah, he ran off the rails. Badly addicted cocaine, got way behind his taxes. He had about a $4.5 million tax bill come due. So he was essentially a tax exile, left the country, was living in Europe for a while, and then returned to the States trying to get his life back in order, moved back with his family. He was living in Los Angeles this time. And as most of us know, his life came to a tragic end in a confrontation with his father, and his father shot him to death in the family home in LA back in 1984. But this song, whether it's disco or not, is one of the great dance floor tracks, great party music. You can't sit still to it. And Marvin Gaye, who's a singer of incredible range and power, is in his falsetto register for essentially the whole song. And gorgeous singing. He's not like Curtis Mayfield. That's not his normal singing voice, but he is doing it brilliantly.
And that's also part of why you can really hear the inspiration that Michael Jackson took from that song too, for Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, because same with the vocal. I mean, the music too is very, in fact, whenever I try to think of Got to Give It Up, all I can think of is Don't Stop Till You Get Enough.
Yeah. And that will almost certainly be joining our playlist when we get to
and there's a controversy that came with this song too.
Yes.
In more recent years.
Michael Jackson wasn't the last artist to be inspired by this track. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Inspired, I think you could say in air quotes, because it would be more like stolen.
Yeah. 2013, Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams put out Blurred Lines, which another really good dance track, but clearly owing some debts to Got to Give It Up. Although there's no samples from Got to Give It Up, and there's no clear like melody rips. It's just really more about the overall vibe of the track.
Vibe, yeah.
But that was enough for the courts to decide to give Marvin Gaye's estate $7.2 million from the proceeds of that Robin Thicke song. And as we, I know enough about Robin Thicke's personal life that he could probably use some of that money to pay off some debts of his own.
Yeah, that whole situation was just a mess, I think. And really, they even admitted that they were listening to the song before they recorded Blurred Lines and were like, we should do a song like this. And, basically, and they just re-recorded the song more or less in their own with their own lyrics, which also are just like really not a good thing all around.
Yeah. Well, but clearly this, Got to Give It Up has resonated through the decades, as we have proven here. And it's still a song that's popped up in a bunch of movies. Key scene in Boogie Nights. That's probably where I first got exposed to it, as a matter of fact. I don't know that I was too aware of that song before seeing it in Boogie Nights.
So how long is the entire song if you take the A side and the B side together?
Just shy of 12 minutes.
Okay. I couldn't find the B side. I could only find the A side to listen to. Does it just continue on doing the same thing and they're just like...
Oh, it goes to a long instrumental passage.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a relentless groove that I could listen to for 12 minutes and not tire of. So,
it is. And it just kind of feels like you're at a party, with all the background chatter and that
element, I think, really takes it over the top. I don't think it's the same without that room ambience and hearing those people chattering in there.
Yeah.
It takes it to a different place. So that's our first song for this episode, 1977. We're going to dial down the dance beats now as we talk about another hit from that year. Pretty much a big left field hit in 1977, I think you'd have to say, with Leo Sayer and the Endless Flight album.
Yeah, so Leo Sayer, born in Sussex, England, started his career in the 60s in a band with a drummer named David Courtney. He had actually played in Adam Faith's backing band. Adam Faith was basically a teen idol from the late 50s, early 60s in England. So I don't really know a lot about Adam Faith, actually.
Yeah, no, there's like this handful of British guys who are early rock stars.
We're like Billy Fury and Cliff Richard even,
right, late 50s, early 60s, that never had any impact on our shores.
Yeah, so pre-Beatles, and So Courtney brought their band to Faith, and he wasn't interested in the band, but he did like Sayer, and he chose to promote him as a solo artist, which would actually later prove to be detrimental to Sayer's career because Adam Faith badly mishandled his business affairs, and Leo ended up suing him in the 90s. But David, Courtney, and Leo Sayer were writing songs, and they were brought to the attention of Roger Daltrey. This is in 1973. He was looking to record a solo album. It was in between tours with The Who. So he liked the songs, and Sayer and Courtney wrote 10 of the 12 songs on that album. And one of them ended up being a top 10 hit called Giving It All Away, which was actually Roger Daltrey's only solo hit of his career. After they were done with Roger's album, Leo Sayer ended up recording his own album called Just a Boy. And he recorded it in Roger's home studio. It was also produced by Adam Faith. And that album actually had his first hit, Long Tall Glasses, I Can Dance. Kind of has a honky-tonk piano feel to it, sort of similar to Elton John, actually, of that era. And
it's kind of a goofy novelty song.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, his a couple of his early hits, The Show Must Go On, also like a music hall style to it.
Love that song. And Three Dog Night had a hit with that, which was their last big hit in 1974. Loved it then. Didn't make the playlist because, again, we were 74. We only had 4 songs. 2 of them were already chosen. So it wasn't the top choice, but that was certainly on my playlist for 74. Something I would have listened to a lot as a kid and still like a lot. Their arrangement.
I think Three Dog Night's version was a bigger hit. Yes. Leo Sayer did have a hit with that song, but it was
in England.
It was a UK hit. Yeah. So then his big breakout in the US was the Endless Flight album. And he had 2 songs that were number 1 hits from that album. One is You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, which is definitely in the disco vein. And the second one was When I Need You. Now that song is very much a ballad and very much of the era. It has the soft keyboard, that sound that sort of feels like it's just so is 1977.
Well, he had the producer du jour behind the board. Richard Perry was the guy at that period of time, big hit maker, and sprinkled his magic dust all over that record.
So When I Need You is actually written by Albert Hammond and Carol Bayer Sager. Albert Hammond had a hit with
It Never Rains in Southern California.
It Never Rains in Southern California.
But baby, it pours.
That was a big hit for him.
Yeah. And 99 Miles to LA was another one that was
I was going to say, actually, he's written quite a few songs for other artists that were hits. 99 Miles from LA was his. Give Me That Ding by the Pipkins. You know that song? He wrote that.
Did not know he wrote that.
He wrote The Air That I Breathe, which was...
Love it.
Oh, great song. Such a great song.
That one just barely missed the playlist.
Oh, yeah. And that was a big hit for the Hollies. He also wrote To All the Girls I've Loved Before. Big hit for Willie Nelson and Julio Iglesias. Mm-hmm.
Did not know that.
He even wrote Starships, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. So, and actually, Albert Hammond was a recording artist in his own right, and he recorded all of those songs himself. And he did record a version of When I Need You. It's very similar to Leo Sayer's musically, but I think the thing, when you hear both versions, is that Leo Sayer's vocal performance in this song, so just aching and emotional, and it really brings a whole other level to this song. And that's why I think it was a hit. It was a hit for Leo Sayer, and it wasn't for Albert Hammond, because it's all about the vocal performance. He's singing in this high falsetto. I mean, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing is in the same vein too. He's singing the falsetto. So this is...
He was a versatile. I mean, he had pretty good vocal range. Really strong falsetto. You Make Me Feel Like Dancing. He really gets up there. And then he had a scream. I mean, he had an edge to his voice too on the rockier tracks.
Yeah.
And a lot of showbiz to his persona too. I mean, real theatricality.
Yeah, there is. In fact, he does have a pretty amazing control in his voice. There was one clip I was watching. He was on the Muppet Show, and he does a live version of this song hanging onto a tree while these Muppet like bears and beavers and stuff are trying to get to him on the tree. and the tree actually falls down, and it is a live performance. Like, you can tell it is live, and he's singing the whole time, and he's like, precariously kind of hanging on this tree, and then the tree falls.
Sounds like some weird,
miss a note.
some weird
Does not
nightmare.
miss a note. Yeah, I know. It's actually pretty funny the way it's put together. But I was like, wow, that was impressive that he could actually carry that tune. And this is not an easy vocal performance. It has quite a range to it.
Oh, he's a strong vocalist.
Very strong vocalist. And this is definitely one of those songs that I have memories of hearing at the time. It was on the radio all the time. It was very much ingrained just into my memory as far as just being everywhere, like even on The Muppet Show. And he was performing on a lot of, other TV shows and things like that.
He kind of looks like a Muppet. I mean,
he does. He's got really big curly hair. He's kind of a smaller guy. He does have quite a look to him.
It was perfect, perfect fit for The Muppet Show.
Yeah. And this was sort
of goofy persona.
I think those two songs, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, When I Need You, those are the songs that anybody knows Leo Sayer for. He did continue on recording, but I don't think he really never had any hits after that.
He had a top 10 with More Than I Could Say in late 80, early 81.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That was an early 80s hit for him.
Which was a cover, as it turns out. I find this interesting, too. So, as you said, he started out as a songwriter. So he wrote a hit for Dollar Tree, he wrote a hit for Three Dog Night. But a lot of music he recorded was covers.
I know. I thought that was kind of odd too. I figured he must have wrote. Yeah, I figured he must have wrote When I Need You. I was surprised to find out that was actually a cover. Yeah, because I was thinking of him more as a songwriter because that's the way he started out. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, he's a very strong singer. He's a talented guy as a singer, and I think that those two songs just really resonated with the times.
Yeah, puts you back in that era when you hear it.
Yeah.
That album definitely spun in our household. And again, the two hit singles are all I remember from, that may be all that was ever played off of that album. But I certainly remember hearing both of those songs a lot.
The rest of the album actually is more of kind of in that singer-songwriter vein and it doesn't have any other disco feel to it at all. You Make Me Feel Like Dancing is really the only song. And in fact, that was the number one song in the R&B charts.
Yeah,
too.
We're getting to a point now as 77 goes along where just about every popular artist kind of felt compelled to do their disco
go in the
record.
disco direction. Yeah.
At least one track in a disco vein and throw it out there and see what happens. Because people were making a lot of money with disco music. Yeah.
And it's interesting because, like Marvin Gaye, like you said, he was reluctant, but kind of pushed in that direction and did it. You would never think of him as in the disco vein. It's just that one song. Leo Sayer, I feel like You Make Me Feel Like Dancing really put him into that. That's where I would think of him more as in the disco era, even though that was really the only song that he had that was of that feel. On the flip side, the other thing that was also very popular at that time were the aching ballads, which is where When I Need You falls in. So those two, I think, were really playing to what was popular at the time.
Carol Bayer Sager was kind of like the Diane Warren of that era, too, with just writing these hit ballads.
Carol Bayer Sager did have quite a few ballad hits for wrote for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she had a career of her own, too. She had some hit songs that she wrote, one with Bette Midler, I think. And
was she not married to Burt Bacharach? I want to say that she
I think
was.
so, yeah. I think she was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyway, Leo Sayer, we will always remember him for When I Need You, which I think definitely a song from that era.
Certainly remember hearing that song on the radio as a second grader. For our final selection for this episode, we're going to depart from the pop charts for the first time. This is the year of punk rock, 1977 after all. And a guy named the godfather of punk, Iggy Pop, put out 2 albums in 77, both produced by David Bowie. One is called The Idiot, and the other one is Lust for Life. And I'm putting the title track from Lust for Life on the playlist. This was not a hit record. Iggy Pop really only had one chart hit, I believe. I'm going to pull out my trusty Billboard guide here, but Candy, right?
I was going to say the song he did with Kate from the B-52s.
Kate Pearson from the B-52s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty certain that's the only time that he has graced certainly the top 40.
Was that in the late 80s?
That was January 91.
Oh, 91. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Reached number 28, spent 3 weeks on the Billboard chart. So he was long in the tooth by then. But Iggy Pop, punk rock as we know it, I think really starts with the Stooges. The 3 albums they put out. Their self-titled album in 69, Funhouse in 1970, and then their third record, which didn't come out until 1973. And David Bowie was behind the boards on that one as well. It's called Raw Power. So Bowie was, as we've already elaborated on this show, a guy who's always ahead of the pack when it comes to musical trends. Certainly saw what was happening with this proto-punk music. He was early fan of the Velvet Underground, early fan of the Stooges. He got to a point where once he started making hits, he could impact the careers of the people who influenced him. So he produced Lou Reed's Transformer, which probably is his greatest solo album. And he tried to do the same for Iggy Pop the next year with Raw Power. It was not a hit, but certainly an impactful album for many people. And really their whole catalog, those 3 records, impacted a whole bunch of musical misfits who would go on to make records of their own later on in the decade. Pop was in a bad way personally with drug addiction, heroin, and Bowie, again, tried to work some magic for him. He was practically living on the streets by the mid-decade in Los Angeles, hopelessly addicted to heroin. And David Bowie was going through his own drug problems at the time, a heavy cocaine user. So they both went to Germany. They shared an apartment in Germany, kicked their habits. Bowie recorded what would become known as Berlin Trilogy with the albums Low, Heroes, and Lodger. At the same time, he was producing these 2 records for Iggy Pop. There is an incredible... if you're a music fan, YouTube is just such a godsend. Mm-hmm. There's so much incredible archival stuff on there. Go find Iggy performing on the Dinah Shore Show in 1977. Oh, yeah. Iggy and Bowie together. Mm-hmm. Bowie's playing the keyboard. Have you seen the clip?
Yeah.
And there you see the Iggy magic. He's just this live wire on stage, just manic energy. He's a tiny little guy.
And he's just one muscle.
Oh, he's just all sinew and muscle and tendons.
Yeah.
And for a guy who had the lifestyle he did, for him to maintain this body throughout his career, he's always in incredible shape.
I know, it's so bizarre.
I don't know what his workout regimen is, but I know he was lucky to still be walking among us. He's one of those rare guys who lived to tell the tale, but the legend is still, the legend with Iggy is such the same kind of legend gets attributed to all these fallen rock stars, the ones that died young.
Yeah.
He's genetically, he's obviously got the goods. It's just unhinged performance on the Dinah Shore Show. And then the interview, Iggy is just effortless. Well, first, he's effortlessly charming.
Yeah.
But the guy is a degenerate. I mean, so you got not only Dinah Shore on the set, but Rosemary Clooney is a guest as well. So these 2, traditional singers from the 50s, these now matronly women in their 40s and 50s or however old they were at this time. And you could tell the mothering instinct is kind of coming out in both of them. They see this poor guy who's obviously got some issues, and they know about his reputation. So Iggy had this, what little people knew about Iggy Pop would have had to do with self-destruction and his stage antics, which included smearing peanut butter on his body, disrobing, cutting himself with bottles, blades, bleeding on stage, puking on the audience, passing out, hurling himself into the drum, just self-abuse, basically.
Yeah.
And you could tell they're both concerned for the lad. Lust for Life, a song that's all about the rhythm, but it's not a disco song. It's a classic Motown beat on this song, and it's his rhythm section.
Boom, 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 boom,
it's You Can't Hurry Love by the Supremes, same beat.
Totally, yeah.
The rhythm section is the Sales Brothers, Hunt and Tony Sales, Soupy Sales' sons. They actually played on Todd Rundgren's brilliant Ballad of Todd Rundgren album. They're his rhythm section on that album. They would be the rhythm section on Bowie's Tin Machine project. Yeah. So they're really young guys when they first, I think they were teenagers on that Rundgren album. So that's Tony Sales on the bass, Hunt Sales on the drums. The guitarist Ricky Gardner, fairly unknown. He passed away recently, I think in the last 6 months. Scottish guy, brilliant guitarist. That's his solo on The Passenger, which is highly regarded. But Lust for Life, just this infectious Motown rhythm behind it. Then you've got Iggy comes in, and he's just such a compelling frontman and singer. He's got that baritone, that strong, deep voice coming out of that tiny, sinewy body. And his lyrics are, it's interesting. So Bowie talks about it on that Dinah Shore interview where he says Iggy is extraordinary in the studio for his ability to just extemporaneously come up with lyrics just on the spot. And a lot of his songs are recorded that way. Just kind of just top of mind
stream of conscious. Yeah.
In this song, he's quoting a William Burroughs book a lot. Here Comes Johnny Yen Again is the first song. Johnny Yen is a character in a Burroughs novel. There's a reference to hypnotizing chickens, which also comes from that book. So Iggy, whose real name is Jimmy Osterberg, James Jewel Osterberg, grew up poor in Ann Arbor, Michigan, basically described himself as trailer trash. Grew up, his family lived in a trailer, played in garage bands. Initially was the drummer of the Stooges, became the front man, heavily influenced by Jim Morrissey. Saw a Doors show at the Grandy Ballroom, I think, and the proved to be very impactful. MC5, Ted Nugent's Amboy Dukes, part of the scene. Bob Seger, his early bands, all part of that Detroit rock scene in the 60s, very aggressive proto-punk guitar music. Mitch Ryder in Detroit Wheels, kind of that soulful rock, but then he released an album called Detroit at the end of the decade with more of a heavy rock sound to it. So, and Alice Cooper also coming out of that scene. So very fertile, heavy rockin' scene.
And
there in
one of the things that Iggy says on that Dinah Shore interview is he's talking about his kind of inspiration musically, and he's talking about like the sounds of Detroit and how like the machinery chugging, and like the like the car factories and like which I thought was interesting because I'm like, yeah, there is that, you do get that sense from that music.
Yeah. And I went back, so of the Three Stooges albums, the one I'm most familiar with is Raw Power, which is an incredible rock and roll record, although it's the way it was recorded is so in your face, so loud, so abrasive, and the remastered version of it. So the original issue, Bowie's mix got a lot of criticism. It took a lot of the life out of it. But then Iggy Pop reissued it later, his own mix, which was one of the harshest, loudest mastering jobs in the history of recorded music. But it kind of suits the music in a way, but it's a tough listen. It can grate after a while. Their second record, Funhouse, I had never listened to it till a couple of nights ago. Wow. That's, And I'm glad I did. What inspired me to go back and listen to it was a record that came out in 1977 that we're going to talk about in our next episode, which is going to be my album pick. But holy smokes, what an amazing record that is. And it's well recorded, too. These albums didn't sell anything at the time. They were very underground, much like the Velvet Underground.
Like the Velvet Underground, yeah.
They influenced, countless later artists, but didn't
one of
sell
those
much
bands
at the time.
where the people that were seeing them all went on to form their own bands. The few people that actually were witnessing them at in their prime.
So Bowie sees these artists that he respects and admires and is influenced by, and sees them struggling and wants to help them along. So Lou Reed, he did. Martha Hoople, he did with all the Young Dudes album. Had their only USA hit on that album with the title track. Couldn't make it happen for Iggy and the Stooges, unfortunately, with Raw Power. But he gives another crack at Iggy Pop with these two solo records. And, he didn't have any big, radio hits, but it sold enough, got enough publicity and sold enough that Iggy was back on his feet and his career resumed and got him back on track. But Lust for Life would have new life in two arenas. My first introduction to the song. So this song I wouldn't have been completely unaware of as a second grader. Wouldn't have had a clue who Iggy Pop was, or barely knew who David Bowie was at that point. But in 1995, the movie Trainspotting comes out, which is a sensation in Britain. I happened to be in London at the time and got to see it in the theater. not necessarily week of release, but early on. And it was really cool to be a part of that. Iggy Pop is this godhead figure to these characters in this movie, which are all a bunch of, heroin addict degenerates. But Iggy Pop is just this deity. They worship two things, Iggy Pop and these football stars, soccer stars. The song was so beautifully used in the movie that it had new life. And that's really where a lot of people came to the song. I think certainly of our generation would have been too young to have caught on when it was initially released. And then Jim Rome, I don't know how long he's been using that as bumper music, but that is basically the theme song to the Jim Rome Show, the sports talk radio host out of L.A. That's his top of the hour bump is Iggy Pop's Lust for Life.
Lust for Life was also used on some TV commercials too. And I think that's where I've heard it the most.
Yeah.
Or at least the beginning part, the boom, 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 boom. I think it's on an ad for like a cruise line.
And it's funny. You hear that song now and it just sounds like it could have been released recently. I mean, it's not really dated at all. And it's so infectious with that rhythm. And great music backing. It's great on the dance floor. And it's one of those songs where it's like, man, it's hard to believe that wasn't a hit. I mean, it feels like that would have been a hit at some point, but no, not. But you listen to the lyrics and it is out there. I mean, it's these strange, surreal, top of mind lyrics where he's quoting from a Burroughs book. It's certainly not the lyrics they would hear on a typical top 40 pop song, but the music is just so sublime.
Yeah.
The music
and really it's just the chorus that I don't even really know what any of the lyrics are. None of that has really like even penetrated my brain. It's all just the chorus and the beat, because the rhythm and the beat is so infectious and just like, that's the part that you just focus on.
And again, that's wholesale right out of Motown Records, that rhythm. But a brilliant piece of music. And our first departure from the pop charts on our playlist comes here in 1977 with Iggy Pop's Lust for Life. So Lust for Life.
It'll be interesting for us to go from When I Need You to Lust for Life on our
playlist. That's right. And that's exactly how I've got it. I've got the songs on our playlist in the order that we presented them.
We're just going to keep going on this playlist, though, and we'll just keep putting stuff out there and hope that it all works well together.
So we essentially, I think we got one more episode left to put a bow on 1977. I think I've got my album finally chosen, although I got another week to listen to a few things to see if it can get knocked off the perch. But I think I'm pretty set with my album. And Sheryl and I discussed this a little bit. I think one of the interesting things about our playlist, we're both rock fans, but the playlist is very pop, clearly, with the exception of the last track that we added here, Lust for Life. But I mean, that should have been a hit. Come on. Should have been.
Yeah,
a hit,
I know.
right?
It is. It does seem like it was, really, because it's so kind of ingrained in pop culture now.
But there really isn't a lot of hard rock to be found on our playlist to this point. Surprising a bit to me. But we're also picking our favorite albums, and all the albums I've chosen as favorite albums have been rock albums. And certainly the one I've got lined up for our next episode is about as heavy a record as you're going to hear.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to make a parallel playlist. So we're going to have our pop playlist and our rock playlist at the same time. But that's coming up. Sheryl and I have a couple more songs to add to the playlist as well. I think I got my final song chosen. It's going to go back to pop and disco. And Sheryl, you still have one more song to nail down here.
I have one more song. I don't know what it is yet. I'll know by next episode.
And then we're going to bring Mike back in to give his favorites from 1977 as well. Sheryl's husband, Mike, they, of course, co-own the Silver Platters record chain. She's a suburbanite in Seattle. I'm a suburbanite in Portland. We are Matt and Sheryl, and this has been Matt and Sheryl's Gen Excellent Playlist. Thank you for joining us once again, and we'll talk to you next time.